Here we are on the Washougal River. This is in southern Washington. We're actually not very far from the Columbia River and only about 30 miles from Portland, Oregon right now. There's a free campground up the hill here that I stumbled on the other day and wanted to go camping in. So I've never actually been here before. My wife and I got here probably about 7 o'clock last night and got a fire going and made dinner and went to sleep. So it's a little after, I think 6:30 in the morning right now, and I wanted to do a little walkabout and show you this forest and the river. And it's actually really similar to where I started learning botany when I was in college 17-18 years ago, and near Mount Spokane in eastern Washington. It's kind of the neat forest type. It's like wet eastern Washington, which is kind of a rare combination. But I guess we are still in western Washington. But I thought I'd show you around and see all the cool stuff I've been finding. Show you it. So here's the river. First of all, I used to do a lot of fisheries, salmon biology work, and there's actually a fish hatchery about not even a half a mile down the bend in this river here. And then Dugan Falls, this is called Dugan Falls Campground, is right there, which is why I think they have a fishery, because the fish come up to the falls and that's all the further they can go. So the fishery, or the hatchery, excuse me, captures the whatever salmon might be spawning, and then they take the eggs and fertilize them. And there's different thoughts on whether that's a good or a bad thing, but I believe up above the falls here we're probably not going to find any salmon, because it's hard for salmon to swim up a 100-foot waterfall. But this big rock here, I've been watching it. There's actually a little water ouzel, or a American dipper, that's been coming in and out of that almost cave right there. They like to nest. They'll actually nest in behind waterfalls, but there's been one jumping around, and they're in the You hear that call? They'll actually dive into the water and they eat underwater invertebrates. They're a tough little bird. They're very cool. But another thing I wanted to point out was there's a ledge here. Had this been below the falls, this would be a prime spot for catching fish. That little ledge right in there is a fantastic spot for fish to be hiding out in. If you were a fly fisherman, if I was fishing with my fly rod right now, I'd be casting into here and letting my line drift just right along this line. And this is a great spot. You could also, one of the things I did as a fisheries biologist a lot, was put on a wetsuit, a snorkel, and goggles, and just drift down. Actually get in the water and drift down, and you can actually come right up. Holy mackerel! Just this moment, I don't know if you can see all these flies, but some little mayfly hatched just now happened. These were not in the air like when I started talking. That's another indicator that your fish are going to start being hungry. There's probably trout up here though. There's their water. There's an American dipper hopping around on that rock there. Let's see if we can zoom in on it. I'm probably talking too loud for him to really want to hang out too much right now. But at any rate, this would be a great fishing spot if we were a little bit further downstream. Now let's get down off of these rocks. And yeah, the plants here are just super. Look how green everything is. This is May 2nd, actually, the day after May Day, and it's everything's going off here right now. But there's a little backwater here that if I was hunting for frogs or something like that, this would be a good place to look. A little sandy wash here. This is a nice little mellow spot for pollywogs or tadpoles, whatever you like to call them, to hang out. And I think I actually found, you can kind of see on the back side of this rock, there's kind of a gelatinous mass there, and I don't see any eggs in it currently, but I think that was where a frog had laid a bunch of eggs, and they may have already hatched. So there should be tadpoles in here. Another thing I found in here is there is a ton of caddisfly larvae in here. See if you see this guy right here. That black thing right there is a bug. He's got a shell. There's another one right there. There's two more right there. There's dozens of them. All these little black spots in here is fish food, essentially. So you can, they don't move very fast. So you can catch them really easily, peel that shell off of them and put them on a hook, and there you have bait. And the fish love it. I remember my cousin Greg and I on the St. Joe River in northern Idaho, we caught dozens of cutthroat trout that way when we were boys. And then these peeled sticks in here are beaver sticks. You can see how that's just cut off like a knife, cut the edge off there. These white ones in here, these have all been chewed clean by a beaver. So upstream of us somewhere we have a beaver, or there might even be one living in the bank nearby here. The males, before they get a family and build a dam somewhere, they actually just burrow a hole in the bank and live that way until they can find a mate. There's a lot of, we're on another track trap here, all this sand here. A fairly large dog, I'd say at least 80-pound dog, had been running around here yesterday, goofing off. And let's look at some plants here. This is I believe this is a Woodwardia fern, which I've never seen in Washington before. We are at the southern end of Washington, but I learned this plant in California. It's one of the most beautiful ferns in the world. And if you, this is a fairly young one. They actually get a great deal larger than this, and there's more of them along here. But the native people, there's some very dark jet black strands on the interior of the stems of them when they're older, that they would weave into their baskets, and it's just shiny jet black, beautiful. This here, from the looks of it, is actually a crab apple. This here would have edible apples on it. They wouldn't taste very good, but in late summer, this is a crab apple. This is some limbs off of it, more limbs off of it. Crab apples, they have almost like this little mitten-shaped leaf, the older ones, where they've got kind of a thumb coming off of the side of them sometimes. And that's kind of cool to see. This is snowberry, Symphorocarpus albus. And snowberry, if I was to cut it open, you'd see it has a hollow stem. Symphoro, symphony, like a wind instrument. That's what the hollow stem, where the name comes from, because of the hollow stem. We've got, looks like this is, I think, some kind of a currant or a gooseberry right here. So this is edible come berry season. This is a really hard time to find certain foods because things are just getting started and haven't started ripened up any berries yet. But your perennial plants are what's going to be fruiting the soonest. Here's more of it right here. And look at that right there. All that strippy bark coming off of it. I'm going to go up there and collect some of that because that would be perfect for making some cordage out of. Oh my goodness. It's kind of tangly, but looks like there's more over here. I only got one hand to play with right now, being the cameraman. Someday I'll have to get me one of those. Oh, look at this. See if we can get these off nice long strands. I'm not even holding it. I was zoomed all the way in. I apologize for that. Get these long strands off of here. And these are nice and tough. I've never played with this before, but this could be almost bowstring quality material. Let's see in here. Oh, this is another really pretty fern. This is called maidenhair fern, and this is another one that was used in basket weaving because that black line you see in the middle there, this also has a jet black stem, and this is a really young one. You can see the larger stems in here, also shiny jet black, really beautiful, beautiful. These grow out of cliffs a lot. And let's see, what else have we got in here? This little plant here is called Stinky Bob or Herb Roberts. It's actually an invasive weed around here, and it has a not very good smell when you pull it. This is Cascara. This is got some medicinal qualities to it, although I don't really recall what they are currently. A Karuk man down in California told me that. This is a hazel. There's a ton of, this is actually all hazel up here. most productive nut crop in the world, grown commercially. If we were to look around here for very long, we would probably find some hazel nuts, although this time of year the squirrels will have already gotten them, so your best bet for finding food from them is probably to find a squirrel cache. This shrub right here is a huckleberry, and they're just starting to put berries on. We'll see some of those a little bit closer. This tree, this little tree here, is a vine maple, which we'll see closer somewhere else as well. But that's one of the best woods that you can make a bow out of in this area for hunting. Vine maple and Pacific yew are two of the better ones. This is a big leaf maple with the big leaves, Acer macrophyllum. That is the largest maple species in the world with the largest maple leaves in the world. They get like bigger than a dinner plate. This is an alder tree up above here. This is some of the best carving wood you can have. It's really wonderful wood for smoking fish and meat. That's what I always smoke salmon with. Just the most beautiful odor to it. Looks like we have a bunch more cascara there. More serviceberry. Here's a wild rose. These are last year's rose hips. These are usually bright red. That one's got a little bit more red to it. These are super high in vitamin C. The flowers are edible, and they're really pretty. Nootka rose. There's another vine maple growing right in there. And let's see what else we have here. There's some willow coming up around here. Willow's a really important species along rivers because it's got an intense root system that does a great job of holding the banks together and controlling erosion. Even that thing out there is a little schooler's willow, and you know that thing is underwater all winter long. It's just getting flooded, but it's able to hang on with its crazy root system. More woodwardia fern. Let's see what else. Oh, here's some roses in bloom here. So these are the wild Nootka rose. Really pretty. And the rose hips are actually really considerable in size, so you get something out of them. What is this? I think that's a younger cascara. More blooming roses. Here's a mustard family plant, which is undoubtedly not native. These often show up along trails, roads, and creeks because they're a lot of your invasive weeds and such. They get transported on foot. Ooh, what do we have here? This is serviceberry with these beautiful flowers, and this plant gets its name because of the end of the leaf. If you can see that, is serrated, but only the top edge, like a serviceman's haircut. So they call it serviceberry. This will have edible berries on it. They're not very flavorful, but they can be added to other foods and eaten. The catkins on the big leaf maple are getting ready to fall in a little while. More hazel. Man, I've never been in the woods with so much hazel before. This is fantastic. So hazel is also probably the world's finest basket weaving material. Native people would cut it down. You know, you find this big old stump here. All this is coming out of some old bush. This is all hazel here that has been actually chewed off by a beaver. You see how that's all cleaved off there, and with these horizontal lines to it? A beaver came here and harvested all this hazel some years ago, and then it grows back in these nice shoots. And if it was done a little bit more methodically by a person, the shoots come back perfectly straight and long, and hazel's a really strong, flexible material. So it's as good a basket weaving material as there is out there. Looks like we have some, we might have some bleeding heart growing in this area. None of it's in bloom yet, but that would be really pretty. This is, I think this is either I think this is twisted stock, but it might be false Solomon seal. They're both here. Here's a better look at that service berry haircut right there. Now we're getting into some huckleberries. I'm seeing those here and there. Oh, this is these are called drupes. They're not berries or fruits. They look kind of like a little plum. This is Indian plum. That's what this plant is. This is another edible plant that, you know, probably in a couple of months this will be producing. I have one of these growing right off my front porch. It doesn't have any fruit hanging off of it yet though. This is more gooseberry or currant in here. We're surrounded by food plants, really. They're just not ripe yet, unfortunately. Is this ocean spray? This is an ocean spray bush. And let's see, what have we got here? More pretty stuff. Getting into some salal here. This is more in the deep forest. This is a really tough, leathery plant, and this does have edible berries on it. This is younger salal. But again, they don't taste super well, but they were really common for adding to pemmican with like smoked salmon and fat and other high energy kind of foods. So we're on the trail now back to a campsite. Here's sword fern, Polystichumnidum, more sword fern. As we get into the shade, we're going to see some of the species of the plants change because they're more or less shade tolerant. I know I saw a good deal more further in here. So this understory in here is almost all that vine maple. I don't know if I've ever seen so much vine maple before in my life. This is a really neat spot. The issue with vine maple and using it for bow wood is finding it straight, because it's, you know, as you can see that thing right there, there's not a whole lot of straight lines in it that you could make a bow out of. And you want like 6 foot of nice long straight wood to do a bow. So let's see here. Here is this false lily here. This looks, I'm trying to hold on to this thing with by the tripod and realizing I'm not getting a lot of stuff in the shot, so I'm going to take it off the tripod. And hopefully that improves my accuracy so you guys see what I'm doing. This here is wood sorrel. Looks like a 3-leaf clover, but it's not even related to them. This is an edible plant. It's got a really nice flavor to it, adding it to flowers. It's got, or to salads. It's got oxalic acid in it, which is the same stuff that's in like arugula, although it doesn't really taste like arugula, but it's a nice addition to salads. If you have problems with kidney stones, though, the oxalic acid is not going to help you. What else have we got in here? Oh, I think this is pine violet coming up. It's not blooming right now, but that's what those leaves look like. Really pretty. Here's some vanilla leaf. I haven't seen this in years because I haven't lived in a forest wet enough for it. This is a fairly wet forest type. I don't know how many inches of rain they get, but I can tell just by looking what's growing here. And here's a twisted stock. Twisted stock has got a zigzag in the stock, which is where it gets its name from. The overstory in here is mostly Doug fir, which doesn't offer really anything in terms of food, although right about now you can make really nice Doug fir tip tea out of the new bright green needles. It's a very delicate, beautiful tasting tea. Beautiful. I think that's false Solomon. Let's see. But in the understory, I've seen a few hemlock coming up here and there. And hemlock tend to like to come up out of old logs. They're very shade tolerant, just like cedar. And so while a Doug fir tree would never ever even think about germinating down here. Wow, look at that. That's a true Solomon seal, that great big thing right there. the white flower on the end of it. Zoom in on that. Almost never see those. So yeah, Doug firs, why they dominate the overstory, they can't take hold under here. They're not shade tolerant, and they actually like to grow in mineral soil. Like after a fire has been done, or a logging operation or something like that. This is columbine, and you know what? I swear to God there was a columbine in bloom down below there that we walked right past. But this is one of my favorite wildflowers. And more huckleberry. Some of the huckleberries I've seen are berrying right now, bearing berries, but they're still bright green, not anywhere near ready for eating. And this is Oregon grape. This is a really good medicinal plant. If you dig up the roots, it's got a really bright yellow root to it that you can make a tea out of. And it's antiviral and other kind of immune boosting things. Here is some wee baby huckleberries. You can see these here. These guys are going to be dark, deep purple here in a couple of months. The berry that Washington is most famous for, I'd say, and they are freaking delicious. More Oregon grape. Again, we're getting that like different forest types as we go in here a little further. More vine maple. Look at the flowers on that vine maple. So vine maple, Acer circinatum. You can see how the leaves in this thing are not like your traditional maple leaf. They're very circular. Hence the name circinatum. They're a dead ringer. Here's salmonberry. This is another edible plant. And this one is just starting to put some berries on. If we can get it in the light there. That's going to be a wee little salmon colored berry. Orangey pink. This is a stand all of huckleberries right here. So here's a hemlock tree. And I bet if we were to walk in there, we would find it's growing out of an old rotten log. And there you go. Here's an old rotten log. This is what they call a nurse log. When these logs fall on the ground, seeds of other plants fall on them, and some of them really prefer to grow on them. And hemlock is one of the most well known for doing that. So this is a probably western hemlock here, because we're down in some low country. There's also mountain hemlock in this region, but they're usually higher up. And then all these huckleberries are growing out of it as well. They really tend to like that. I've seen huckleberries growing out of the tops of dead trees, like 30 yards up in the air. And here's our campsite. So what else do we have around here? Anything new? Here's some woodruff right here. This is kind of one of nature's Velcro plants. If you see it's sticking to my hand, that'll actually like come off on your jeans and tag along with you for a while. This is thimbleberry. It's got kind of a maple leaf shape to it. This is my favorite tasting berry in the world. Here's one in bloom right here. These big white flowers. They've got like a cross between a strawberry and a raspberry flavor, and they're fantastic. They're also medicinal. The leaves can be used like raspberry leaf for a blood strengthener. Much more of that cute woodruff. This stuff here is called Spring Beauty. Oh, there's a crane fly or a mosquito hawk caught in somebody's web. But Spring Beauty here, this is an edible spring green. Really delicious and super high in minerals. Let's see. So beautiful here. More vanilla leaf. I did see some trillium here earlier, but they've already bloomed. They're one of the prettiest wildflowers in this area, and we missed them, unfortunately. But here's a European native. This is common plantain, and this is edible and medicinal. When the leaves are really young, you can eat them like spinach. I've steamed them and stuff. Here's more Spring Beauty growing alongside of them. But if you have a wound, you can chew some of this up as a poultice and apply it to your wound, and it's astringent. It'll help keep the bleeding from getting out of control. This little yellow flower here is a buttercup, and we're not getting the light to see it, but the insides of the leaves are shiny, like they're coated in butter. That's where they get their name, I believe. More stinky bob, also called herb Roberts. Bracken fern, right here, grows all over the world. Really pretty. That's edible when it's very young. If there's any fiddleheads coming up under here, I don't see any. But you can cook the fiddleheads of those, which is the uncurled stem as it comes out of the earth, kind of like asparagus. And yeah, that's it. This is the Dugan Falls campground and the Washougal River.